How are you guys? Good. How was your weekend? Did you guys enjoy Damien?
Yes.
Whenever you think it's ready, that we could just.
He's just a little crazy.
Tell him
A
to start
little
that.
bit. And he did keep it clean for you guys, believe it or not. So Damon was you know Damon Rosier? He's a comedian.
No, I don't.
Oh, yeah. So we had him here last week, and he just has a lot of jokes. So class really liked that. And he took a selfie. Hey, you should take a selfie with the class. Make that a tradition now. Selfies. So they go out of style and no one wants to do it anymore. All right, so we have another great speaker and a friend of mine. You guys ready? So we have another great speaker today, Sherlock Washington. Yes, that is his real name. You know, who I've known for quite a long time. We worked on a lot of projects when I was in the state, and you know, he still has his business. But we worked a lot of employment-related projects. We worked on a lot of disability awareness projects. I think we did the first African Americans with disabilities employment conference in anywhere. So we've done quite a bit of different things together. And Sherlock's is a great guy. We also have Amo Musharraf, who's going to be talking to us as well.
Absolutely.
And Amo has worked in the business world as well, and has a great story to share with us. So one thing you guys should keep track of, and I know Sherlock talks about technology. So if any of the speakers show you any technology or what it does or anything, you should definitely take note of what that is, because it has shown up in multiple choice exams before. So any questions before we get started? Oh, also, I started grading the papers. So some of you may have a grade already, some of you may not. PJ's gonna grade some of the papers. I'm starting from the top down, and he's starting from the bottom up. So hopefully, within a few days, all you guys will, so far most of your papers, look great. So any questions? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna let Sherlock take it. Obviously Sherlock is the better dressed one of us today. He's Mr. GQ. And I said, well, you look like you stepped out of a GQ magazine. And he said, well, I didn't do anything. My wife did everything. All right, Mr. Sherlock.
Thank you, my good man. I appreciate the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Fantastic. I like to know that we have a full house. And with a full house, that means that everybody's going to be interacting, so that's a good thing. So we'll be leaving some opportunities or time for you guys, obviously, to ask some questions. And I always like to basically equate it to this. When you were a little kid and you had a question, and maybe you saw something a little different, or someone was a little bit different than you were, and then you said, oh, Mom, that person has a shh. You get shushed. Or you say, that's not nice, or whatever the case is. You guys have, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? Mm-hmm. Today you have the golden ticket. Anything that you want to ask, you feel free to my colleague Amo, myself, or Javier, anything that you guys want to ask. This is all about you, and that's why we're very, very happy to be here. Every time when he has this course, I always look forward to coming and to meeting and hearing different voices and talking to you guys, and just to share a little bit about my life story and to see how we do what we need to do, right? So I'm going to start off by saying at the age of 7, I was diagnosed of having an eye condition called RP. RP, for some of you, that stands for retinitis pigmentosa. And they had told my parents, myself at the time, that as he gets older, either his vision will stay the same, or as he gets older, he may gradually lose some, or he may lose all of his vision totally, altogether, okay? It just so happens that when I was in high school, right before, I guess my senior year, is when I lost the majority of my vision. And at that point, I had to say, well, what am I at that time? So usually we are trailblazers, right? We're the first ones, and everything that we do, it's like being done by the first time. So you can't really just knock on a door or just say, I'm going to ask a question, somebody has the answer. So we would have to go through life and just figure things out. And then we hope that we're doing all the right things to get us where we need to be. Well, in high school, I had something called, we had a classroom that we would go to one period out of the class, the day, and then I would have a supplemental instructor just reading for me. She was like a reader. That's what she would do. I mean, I'd have all these different exam tests and the different classes that I was going through, and I would bring my homework down, and she would more or less read the assignment and help me gather up that information so I would be able to do my work. I said that when I was there in high school, I had to make that decision as to how I was going to be going forward. And it came to me that we had a resource room that we went to, and we would take all these different aptitude tests, and it seemed that I scored kind of high in mathematics and English, and I said, well, how can I put this to work? One of the things that I saw there that was extremely fascinating to me was a computer, but not the computer that you guys know today, right? This computer was just a keyboard, and it had actually paper that was feeding through it, and it had like a 24-pin dot matrix printer that would print out all this information. Somebody would type in whatever they were looking for, and then all this stuff would come out through this paper. And I said, that is so fascinating. I wonder how that works, and if someone like myself who's blind or someone with low vision can use something like this, and what can we do with this? So one of the questions that was asked was, well, the computer field, how successful would that be? And at that time, they said up to the year 2040, you're going to have an open field. You can do anything from programming, statistics, anything with this computer. The computer is going to be the wave of the future. Now, you guys are very young, and I'm kind of very old, right? To you guys, you might think it's old, right? And then, of course, when you're saying the future, and till the year 2040, I'm like, yeah, well, of course, back then in the early 80s, and I'm saying, wow, I can find a job and do something here. This would be phenomenal. This would be terrific. So, lo and behold, I had applied to 3 of these colleges that came up very high in the computer science field, and one of those schools was right here, Rutgers, New Brunswick, right? Then I had another school that I applied for, which was Rider University down outside of right in Lawrenceville, right outside of Princeton. And then the other school was Keene College that I also applied to. So I got accepted to all 3 schools. I went around, you guys probably did the same thing when you went to see what school would basically be the best fit for you. And you guys walked around and you just checked out all the different, facilities, dorms, all the things that you need to do. So I did that as well too. And I said, Rider would have been, that's truly my best fit. That's the best fit for me. And I liked it because the classrooms were small, just like they were in Wayne Hills. I mean, you're talking about the largest class might have been maybe 40, 50 people, okay? Well, we're not talking about any science courses, like a room like this, which would probably hold, maybe 100 or a couple hundred people. That would probably be the most that they would have, and that's usually with the science department that would have that type of stadium seating, and you'd have these very large classrooms. But I knew that that was going to be a great fit for me, and I said that, I would like to come here. And the reason that I did was I remember when I was speaking to the department chair of the computer science department. And he said, they're going to be doing some miraculous things with computer technology in the future. And he said, I want to share with you an example. And then he brought me to this monochrome monitor. You guys probably don't know what a monochrome monitor is because you guys are using this HDMI, high-tech, where it looks like 3D imaging and everything else. Back then, this was just like just a green monitor. And then after the words were in white, and he typed 2 letters on the screen, and he enlarged those letters. Enlarged them so big that I was able to see it. And I said, this is awesome. I am going to love this. Guess what those 2 letters were? Were you in the last class? This is a smart guy over there. That's right, he said hi. By him saying hi, I'm like, wow, this is a whole new beginning for me. And I went to school, And I started off, and I was very, very excited. But in the life of someone who has a disability, sometimes individuals don't see things the same way, I should say, that someone who is with a disability sees things, okay? And at that point in time, I had a professor, and he had said to me, Sherlock, you know, he was writing things on the blackboard. And I wasn't able, obviously, to see what was being written on the blackboard, right? So I was recording some of my classes. So now when someone is describing and telling you about a formula, and you're taking this equation, and you're plugging this formula into here, and then this is what, so now I'm going back to my dorm room, and I'm hearing the same exact thing, so I'm getting nowhere, right? So one day I approached him, and I said, you know, Professor, I really need your assistance here, because I'm not really getting the full effect of what you're trying to describe to me. And he's like, look, I'm sorry, but this is just how I teach. This is just all I know, so I don't know how we're going to be able to help you in this situation. I was kind of disappointed. Not more than disappointed, it was kind of like, whoa, wait a minute, do I have to drop the course? What's going on here? So I went and I spoke with the dean of students, and I explained to him what was going on. He said, Sherlock, look, don't worry about that. You just go back to class, and you know, just come back and see me in the next week or so, and let me know how things are going. Well, lo and behold, you know, I walk into class one day, and now he's telling me about you know, the color in his tie, very, very specific as to what's going on, as to what the formulas were, and it was very, very helpful to me. And I knew at that point in time, you know, obviously the dean of students spoke with him, obviously, and explained to him that we need to be a little bit more accommodating than we're trying to be here to see that he can get as much out of this as he possibly can. Well, I did pass that course, and when I was taking my final exam, the professor had told me, he said, Sherlock, look, you're going to pass the course, but you know, I have some advice for you. I said, oh, he's got some advice. It's so very nice of him. And the advice was he felt that I should go to a technical school. He said, you can get the certificate that you need to go out and really get to work in maybe 6 months to a year. And this is going to be so much of a challenge for you. Things are going to be a lot harder. They're going to be a little bit more difficult. But you see, he felt that he was helping me. And I could understand that. I could see it from his point of view, right? He wanted to help the person that he felt that, look, things are going to be very, very difficult for you. Because a lot of times, don't we always kind of put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, so to speak? And if he felt that, hey, if I were to go blind tomorrow, there would be no way in the world that I can do any of this. There would be absolutely no way that this stuff could happen for me. But he didn't know something about me at that point in time. If someone told me no or tried to discourage me, I was always the type of individual that I would always find a way to do whatever I needed to do, despite what someone told me, okay? So 4 years later, when I walked off the stage and they took a photograph of me holding my diploma on high, and I was on, like I said, the front page of the school newspaper, I knew wherever he was, he obviously may have seen this as well too, right? And then I hope that he remembered how, for me, he truly helped me. You're saying, how did he help you? He was being so negative. How was that being of help to me? Well, I always feel that there's two ways that you can take any situation, right? You can take it for face value, or you can say, you know what? If someone believes, that's their belief. That's not my belief. And I remember that day walking back to my dorm room when he had told me that I would be better off in some type of a technical school, and I explained this to my mom what this person said. She said one thing to me that always resonates with me. She said, Sherlock, I've known you your entire life. Right? Who can know their son or daughter better than their mother, right? So she said, I've known you for your entire life, and you've always been a great student, and I don't want you to take anything that this person is saying and take it as this is fact, because I know you and I know what your capabilities are. That's where family comes in. Family friends, relatives, anything that we're going through a tough time, right? Who do we always go to, right? We go to our best friend. We go to a family member. We go to someone, and they're able to give us some sound, great advice, right? So my mom's advice at that point in time helped me to overcome that little sadness or little depression that I had going through this whole thing. But I knew that 4 years later when I graduated, I said, you know, this is not just me that's on the stage here. This is all the people that are going to come behind me and all the people that have believed in me and my abilities. We all share in this wonderful occasion of the graduation. So I know that that goes on to people that still don't have a disability. They still feel that way when they have those words of encouragement that's given to them. So that's a great thing. Now, what's the next big challenge you think when you get out of school? Finding a job. Very good. You know, I like you guys. You know why? Nobody went like this. Because we went like this, well, boy, we would get all very tired now, wouldn't we, right? But finding a job was the next huge challenge. And why would that be such a challenge? Because of the same thing, people's perception, people's belief as to what a person can and can't do. How are they going to help me with my company? How are they going to be an asset to me where we have to work here? So one of the things that I had done, I put together a resume, like everybody does, and sent the resume out to all these different companies, and I got my degree in computer science and statistics pretty much. And I sent the resume out to so many different companies. And I could have wallpapered a room with all the rejection letters that I was receiving. Wallpapered a whole entire room. But there were some very nice nibbles and even a couple of bites. And what I mean by that is someone had called me up. They said, look, you know, Sherlock, I saw your resume, and, you know, for the job description, I think that you fit to a T what we were looking to have come in here to work for us. So I always felt that I'd be the open and honest kind of guy that would explain to them and also let them know what my particular situation was. So I said to him, I said, that's great. I'm looking forward to it. I just want to let you know, though, that I am someone that's blind. Well, I could have probably heard the crickets outside. He had gone silent, okay? And I'm thinking, well, maybe, hopefully the line didn't get disconnected. So I said, hello? And he said, yes, Sherlock, I'm still here. And I said, I'm very, very pleased and very happy that you shared that with us, or with me. What I need to do is there are several individuals that I wanted you to meet when you came in for your interview. So let me make some calls and see what their schedules are, and then after we can have you come in, okay? Do you think I ever got the call? No, the call never came, okay? So I said, look, I have to basically think around this. I don't want to basically get shot down even before I leave the house. So what I'm going to do is, if they ask me to come in for an interview, I'm not going to share with them that I'm someone with a disability, that I'm blind. Well, lo and behold, what happens at that point in time, somebody did call. I went in to meet with them, and I got into the the entryway there, the foyer, and the receptionist says, oh, you're Sherlock Washington? I said, yes, I'm here, and I'm here to see such and such, and she said, okay, please stay right here, and I will get him for you. So the person comes out, and one of the first things that I could hear, you could hear things in the voice. I mean, my hearing is pretty good. And you could always hear the inflection, the tone in which someone is speaking, and you can kind of gather what their thoughts are. So he came out and he said, Sherlock, you didn't tell me that you were visually challenged, visual problem. I said, you mean that I was blind? So he's like, yes, that you're blind. He said, oh, but please come into my office and sit down and let's talk. So I get into his office and we're sitting down, and one of the questions, you figured that he's going to be speaking to me and talking to me about how are you going to be able to do this particular piece of programming, what kind of programming you're able to do, and blah, blah, blah. But what he did say to me was, one of the first questions he said was, well, how would you get here every day? And I said, wow, that's a question. How am I going to get here every day? And I said to myself,
well, how did I get here today? I'm thinking, oh, this guy's not, 100% there. But he didn't know, right? He has no idea. And I think that he was pretty much thinking that if this person comes to work for us, maybe we might have to be responsible for taking care of him and doing all these things. And who's going to walk him to the bathroom? Who's going to get him his lunch? Who's going to cut up his meat? All those type of things that I could sense that was going through his mind. Okay? So lo and behold, that did not work out. But something did work out for me eventually, because like I said, if you first do not succeed, you try and try again. Some people may be discouraged, but I knew that I needed to find a job. School loans needed to be paid back, so I have to get to work. So there was a gentleman that was a part of his job club that the New Jersey Commission for the Blind, one of the agencies here, had put together. And with this agency, what they had done was they had all these individuals from the Human Resources Department, from all these large companies, come in, and they were going to help us with either our interviewing skills or as well as a resume writing and everything else. But I already knew how to do all that stuff. So what they did for me at that point was, there was a gentleman that was on the panel or the board of this job club, and he had a computer company. And he said, I am interested in hiring a few individuals here that are a part of this job club. And it would be telemarketing. And I said, oh, telemarketing. We know about telemarketers, right? Do we like when they call? Do we feel nice, warm, and fuzzy, getting ready to say, hey, yeah, great, I like that, sure, I'll take 10. No, we certainly do not, right? So I said, oh my gosh, if I wasn't feeling enough rejection already, now I'm going to enter into a field where I'm going to be on the phone calling people, asking them to purchase products, and then I'm going to get more rejection, right? But guess what? It was a door for me that was open, that wasn't open before. So I took the opportunity and took the job. And with this job, they said, look, we're going to give you some leads. Now, these individuals used to do business with us, but for some reason or another, they decided that they're not going to basically do business with us any longer. But we'd like you to give them a call and try to convince them that they can start coming back and doing business with us again. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if anyone burns you once, are you so willing to go freely and get burned again? The answer is no. So I knew that my challenge was going to be a real uphill battle, okay? So they gave me about 100 or so of these so-called leads. And I did start making these phone calls, and I started to think, well, how would I approach this situation if it was a friend or if it was someone that I knew really well? So that's how I started to do this telemarketing thing, okay? And lo and behold, I was very fortunate, because after about 4 months, I was able to get 80 of those 100 people to buy from that company again. The other great thing was that some of the clients that I used to service their account knew what I was doing for them, and somebody offered me a job. I guess what they call them, headhunters these days, right? They call and they drive and try, hey, you know what, we got a better opportunity for you, blah, blah, blah. But this person called up and he said, Sherlock, I'd like you to come and work for my company. And look, I'm like, well, I'm kind of apprehensive. And by the way, I never told anyone that was on the other end of the phone. That was the equalizer, by the way. I knew with a phone, no one would see that I was someone with a disability, right? They only would know me for who I was as to the type of job in which I was able to do for them. So when he offered me this opportunity and I took it, I left that company and I went to work for his company. Not until I walked in the door is when he knew that I was someone who was blind. He said, you're blind? And I'm like, yeah. And he says, that's great. Whatever you were doing or whatever needed to be done for you there, we're going to do the same thing for you here. And I worked for that company for about 2.5 years until Lo and behold, a phone call comes in. One of my clients that I was dealing with for a long time, he says, look, I'm looking for someone to basically do rep for us for selling, training or to sell some repairs that we were going to be getting involved with. So I got hired again, sight unseen, to go work for someone else. That happened to me 5 times in my life. And one of the last companies that I worked for, the gentleman, he had been introduced, or I should say, I was introduced to him through one of his employees. Now, this employee used to work with me for this one company, and he said, I'm going to go. I've been offered another job down in Edison, and I'm going to go and take this opportunity. But if I see that there's any openings over there for what you're doing, Sherlock, I'm going to give a call and let you know. Well, lo and behold, about several months later, he calls me up and he says that he talked to the CEO of the company about me, and the person wanted to meet me. And I said, really, how'd that come across? He said, no, they have a thing here where they hire from friends of friends and that kind of thing as well, too. So if you give a good recommendation, that's where you're going to want to come and see you. So I told him a lot about you. And the other thing I told him that you were blind. And when I said that you were blind, he says, really? He said, what's his name? He said, his name is Sherlock. He said, Sherlock? He said, yeah, his name is Sherlock. He says, well, anybody with the name of Sherlock I want to meet. So I had an opportunity. I spoke with this gentleman for about 45 minutes. His name was Rick Rose, by the way. Never forget, because he was truly a game changer for me. And I talked to him on the phone. He wanted me to come in and meet with his sales manager, which I came down and I met with the sales manager. And as we were sitting and chatting, they had a few questions for me. And one of the questions that they asked, and I never forget this one, they said, how do you see yourself as a salesperson from 1 to 10? What do you think I told them? Thinking I told him 10, right? I was thinking about that. And I said, you know what? You'll probably think I'm full of myself, right? 10, overly confident, blah, 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 this guy's got an inflated head. So I said, no, I can't say 10. But then again, should I say 6? Then you're like, well, why would I want to hire somebody who's a 6, right? So I said, look, let's go in the middle of the road. I'm going to do 8, between 6 and 10. I'm going to do 8. And he said, 8? Why do you give yourself an 8? And I'm like, oh boy, it was a trick question. Then I said, because you should always leave room for improvement. And as soon as I said that, he said, you're hired. We're going to get the person in HR to come in and get you signed up. Oh, by the way, how much money do you want to make? You ever have a job like that? They're asking me how much money I want. After I was hired, by the way. Now, how much do you want to make? So I just threw out a number. And I threw this number out, and he said, okay, done. Believe me, when I walked out, I didn't want to kick myself. And I said, I could have probably said a lot higher, and he would have given it to me. But the great piece was, I remember him, grabbing me, shaking my hand. He said, don't worry, Sherlock, we're going to take real good care of you. And he most certainly did. They gave me commissions and the whole 9 yards, and it was just an awesome company to work for. Well, I worked for that company for a couple of years. And after working for this company, they got bought out by a large corporation called GE Capital. And my job kind of shifted and changed, and I was only selling training to people at that point in time. So with selling training, I said, this is great, this is wonderful, but this is not really what I've been able to do the whole entire life. I'd rather go back to doing the computer hardware, asset remarketing. So one guy who worked there left and started his own company with a couple of other friends, and he had said, Sherlock, look, we want you to come and start a division with our company and with asset remarketing. You could be the director of remarketing. I said, wow, that sounds like an awesome title. So I went, and they wanted me to go out to lunch, and I sat and had lunch with this guy, and he said to me, Sherlock, look, I don't know, whatever you're getting paid now, we're going to pay you more. And to sweeten the deal, we're going to pay for a driver to pick you up, to bring you to work, and to bring you home in the evening. How can I say no to that? So I went and I worked for that company for a long time, for about 1.5 years or so. Their direction was changing and shifting, and then I had gone at that point in time, after the direction had changed, I had started my own company. People had always said to me, Sherlock, you'd be great at just doing this stuff yourself. So I don't think that you need to, to work with somebody else. And I did get a lot of offers for people asking me to come to work for them. But why am I telling you this story? And I talked about starting my own company back in '98 and doing the same thing, by the way, asset remarketing, and then it kind of evolved where I was able to then sell adaptive technology and to rep adaptive technology here in the state of New Jersey. There is a company, a very, very large, one of the largest companies in the world, as a matter of fact, the #1 company for screen readers called Freedom Scientific. And they had approached me and they said, we heard some good things about you in the state. We'd like you to represent our products here. So they came to me, several other companies had come to me, but the greatest piece that I remember was why I wanted to get involved with the adaptive technology is because the adaptive technology was the real kick changer for me. It helped me to do all those things that I needed to do independently. But something else that was very major, and you're probably saying, look, we're talking about, this is the class that we're talking about disabilities in sport, right? So one of the things that was a very key game changer for me as well was when I was a young person, about 14, 15 years old. And I started to get myself involved with sports for the blind and the visually impaired. And I always remember being able to come in first or second in all the statewide competitions that they had. And I said, oh, this is pretty much, it's a good time, this is fun. And I think that this is going to be something that I'm going to really enjoy doing. Well, I was very, very, very happy that my parents were very supportive of all of the things that I got involved with. But when I got involved in sports means a whole bunch of open doors, right? Sports, you really get to see who you are as an individual, right? You have to either be in a situation when you were track and field, so you have to do a lot of workouts and stuff by yourself. You're working with a coach, of course, that's basically giving you some opportunities and some ideas as to what you need, how you need to get things done. But it's up to you when you're out on a track as to putting those things in play to making it work out to see if you're going to come in first or if you're going to come in last. So nationally, I was always one that used to come in either first or second place in the whole entire country. But one of the things that I really did excel in was the high jump. And I was always #1 in my vision class for the high jump. So back in 1990, I was chosen to go represent the U.S. at the World Games. So I went to Assen in Holland at the time, and I came back with a 3rd place in the world. And that for me was, wow, I didn't think that I could get any better than that. I know those guys were real good. And I said, well, I did the best that I possibly can do. But now that I see that this is something that's behind me now, that I can do this, and I kind of moved off to other sports. One of the sports that I used to play a lot was called goalball. And back in '93, we were able to bring New Jersey's very first gold medal to the state of New Jersey. It was myself, a friend of mine, and as well as another friend of mine as well, just 3 of us guys, and we were able to bring this gold medal home to New Jersey. So after goalball, I said to myself, well, what other sports that are out there that I can get involved in? Well, back in 1995, a friend introduced me to the sport of beep baseball. And you say, baseball? How does a blind person play baseball? Well, this is how it works. There's a ball. It's the size of a softball, or a little bit bigger than a softball, I should say. It's like a Chicago-style softball. It's about 16 inches around, or whatever they would call this. And it has a pin in it. Once you pull the pin, it emits a beeping tone. It goes beep, 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 beep. Once it beeps, then that's pretty much for the outfield, for the guys who are basically playing defense. They need to hear where that ball is. They have 2-sided spotters that are behind them in the field, and those spotters give them a zone where that ball has been hit. And by that zone being called out, we were to run, and then we're to dive. You have to play this on grass, by the way. You have to dive on the ground and try to intercept the ball. So you hit it with some part of your body, and then you have to pick it up in the air. So if you pick the ball up and have it away from your body, if the person, okay, well, I should probably tell you a little bit about how many bases there are in baseball, first off. The baseball, there's how many bases? 4, right? Yep, you got home plate, first, second, third, right? But in this sport, there's 3. There's home plate, first base, and third base. Now, These bases are about 4 feet tall. They're made out of a spongy type material, and they also have a speaker that's inside the base. When that speaker's in the base, you never know if you're going to be running to the first base line or the third base line. It's random. So when you hit the ball, you know that you have to listen very carefully to hear where that sound is being emitted from, and then you have to run as fast as you possibly can and to tackle that base. Okay? Now, if you get there before the person picks up the ball, it's a run for the team. But if that person picks up the ball before you get to the base, it counts as an out. Now, in baseball, how many strikes are there? 3. In beat baseball, they give us 1 extra. So we've got 4, right? You can take a ball or whatever you want to do, but everyone is playing this sport except for the pitcher, the catcher, and the spotters. Everyone else who is a participant as a player has to play under sleep shades because there are different levels of vision loss and vision acuity. So the only way that they can do to keep this all fair for everyone is to be sure that everybody sees the same, which is nothing, right? So now you're relying on your hearing. The pitcher and the catcher, as I said, they're on your team. They're not like how we have regular baseball where the pitcher and catcher are in the opposing team. They're trying to strike you out. These guys are trying to make sure that you make contact with that ball. Once you make contact with the ball, it goes out in the outfield. That's where the spotters come in for the opposite team, and they direct their guys as to where that ball is coming by yelling out a zone or a number, and then that person has to go to that zone or number, dive down, and intercept the ball. Okay? Great sport. After I played for the first year, I was invited to go to Denver, Colorado, and I said, this is awesome. I'm outdoors. I'm running free, I'm hitting a ball, I'm diving on the ground, I'm doing all kinds, driving on the grass, I'm doing all types of things that really I can put all different facets of what I've been doing in sports to use. And that's the sport of beat baseball. Now, you're probably saying, well, do we have a beat baseball here?
Yes, we do.
Okay, my friend, why don't we pull the pin and send it around? There's the beat baseball, and this way you guys can just kind of get an idea as to the size of it, what it sounds like, as well as if that ball is hit and they get hit pretty hard, you have to stop that ball with your body, okay? So that's the ball, and that's the sound that ball emits, and it's like I said, it's a phenomenal sport. If you ever played this sport, and we always look for sighted volunteers, because you can't just basically be blind or visually impaired people playing by themselves. We need to have sighted help to do what we need to do to feel free and have that independence. But what this sport has also allowed me to do is to meet some really very cool and very interesting people in my life. I was very fortunate back in 2009. I was asked to play with a world championship beatball team called the West Coast Dogs. They invited me to come out and play with them. And of course, they already had the year before a championship ring already. And they asked me to join them because they knew that I really enjoyed the sport and I played it pretty well. So they asked me to come out and play with them. So I went, played with these guys, and I received my first championship ring back in 2009. And back in 2010, because they asked me to come back again, of course, and I was able to get my second championship ring. But something amazing happened. My organization that I belong to, which is called the ABA&J, stands for Association of Blind Athletes of New Jersey. They said, Sherlock, we've been providing, opportunity for you to go and travel all across the country to play this sport. Now we need to form and start up our own team here in New Jersey, and we'd like you to spearhead that and to work and get that team off the ground. So back in 2010, we founded a team called the New Jersey Lightning Beat Baseball Team. And by the way, if you guys are Facebook fans, please just look it up, New Jersey Lightning Beat Baseball. Friend the page. Of course, always some interesting things for you guys to see there as well. Also, I mentioned ABA&J, Association for Blind Athletes. And that's abanj.org, by the way. Feel free to take a look at that website as well. And you'll see some really fascinating things that you probably never thought in your minds or your wildest dreams that would ever exist. But I was telling you about some of the interesting people that we get a chance to meet. And I'm going to be bringing up a friend of mine here that back in 2014, he had come out because somebody had invited him, and he came out to see what this sport was all about. And it's my friend Amo that was introduced to you here by Professor Rublass. Now, Amo, when he came out, Amo has hearing loss as well as some vision loss. Of course, Amo sees much better than I do. He also has the same eye condition, but he sees much better than I do. And he came out and he wanted to basically take the opportunity. He wanted to play the sport. But unfortunately, because of his hearing loss, it would have been a little bit difficult for him to zone into exactly which base was being triggered to go off. And he said, look, Sherlock, look, you know what? I may not be able to help you with being a fielder, and I don't know what I can do, but look, I really enjoy the sport. I really want to take part and do something for the team. So what he had decided to do at the time, I said, well, you know, Amo, you've got so many talents. And he said, you know, just give me a camera. I'll take some photographs. Lo and behold, did I ever know that this man was so immensely talented. He's just like a marketing genius. He's also a videographer. He's able to take photographs. He's able to take videos. But it's what he does with the videos to truly represent what we do here in sport, which is beat baseball and all the other sports that the ABA&J helps support. So I want Amo to share a little bit of his story with you. And after he's finished, we've got a special treat. We've got a little video to share with you as well. And after that, you guys feel free to ask any questions that you'd like to ask Amo.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, this is Eddie. Eddie is Sherlock's son.
Hey. So what we have going over here is what is it? This is the live cast of
Oh,
the
that's
class.
right. I forgot all about that. Share with them. Did you remember what's going on?
Yeah, I do, but I think that you're the technology guy. You want to
Real quick. Right now, we have a new medium, new piece of technology that we were trying for the very first time here today. It was called, are you guys familiar with something called Periscope? No? Oh, one yes back there. Okay, we got a periscoper back there. Well, I heard about this medium called Periscope, and I went and I checked it out, and I felt it was fairly accessible. But the great piece about Periscope is, right now live, we are actually periscoping. Means that people can see that we have this up on the Periscope, they can tap on it, it opens up, and they are now looking at what you're looking at as well. And you can share, people probably, they're able to ask questions right there as you're doing your Periscope. Unfortunately, that doesn't work too well for me because you know it's the visual thing coming up and stuff. So I always try to tell people in the beginning, please, you know, somebody else is going to be working the camera and try to be as patient because we can't see what's scrolling across the screen and some of the questions you may have. But it's a live feed. So now it's like you being on candid camera on video right now. Turn around and so the guys can say hello to Periscope. Say hello, guys. Hi. There you go, live on Periscope here today. So that's a really cool medium. And I said to when I started this on Sunday, I said, you know, I'd like to share with those what we're doing in the visually impaired, the blindness community, the disability community. There's not a lot of reality shows about individuals with disability. And who's to say how this would basically come across? So I said, look, I wanted to share some of the day-to-day things that I do to see that others kind of get an understanding and an idea, just like you guys are here and you signed up for this class because you were curious as to, well, how does someone with a disability do some of the things that they do? How are they comedians? How are they professors? How do they do all the things that they need to do? So hopefully with this medium, we're going to be able to share with the world some of the things that we're doing today. So I don't want to take Mr. Amo Sheriff's time. Amo, you take it.
Hi everyone. I guess most of you are in counseling or sports medicine. Is that what are some of the majors that we have in the classroom? Can you share, please?
Exercise science.
Okay, exercise science. Okay, good. I'm deafblind, so I'm a partial. I have my deafness is much worse, but my sight, I have tunnel vision. So I have central vision, but I have no peripheral. So I miss handshakes. If someone wants to shake my hand, and Growing up, so it's kind of like Helen Keller. She was totally deafblind, but I have partial in both. So growing up, I had trouble in school because I could not understand what the teacher was saying when the teacher turned away because I couldn't read the lips anymore. So now we have fantastic technology to overcome that. I'm wearing hearing aids. These are the latest ones. They cost $6,000 each. It's like having two second-hand cars, one. and they via Bluetooth communicate with my phone. So on the iPhone, if a phone call comes in, I get straight here. I can watch YouTube, or I can watch Netflix. It's coming straight here. So there's a lot of technology now that helped me with my hearing issues. But before that, I had to rely on lip reading, and that was a challenge growing up. And one of the things that happens to some people who have disabilities is that they're highly sensitive. They develop a sensitivity. So if you guys will be working with individuals with a disability or individuals with a broken home or some kind of trauma in their childhood, you will notice that they have they're highly sensitive individuals. So you have to be careful about that, to recognize that. And there was, in the field of psychoanalysis, you've heard of Freud, who used to talk about childhood trauma and everything burned down to sex as far as Freud was concerned. But then you move on, and then you have Carl Jung. If you read Jung, and he went more in depth. He was a student of Freud, and he later on said, no, there's more to that. And he's the first one to develop this science of sensitivity, that the biggest difference between two individuals is how sensitive we are to the external world and how we process the stress that we get. And and do we control how much overwhelmed we get when we meet people or when we face world circumstances or personal circumstances. So today, that has gone even further, and there's an American lady who is at the forefront of this sensitivity studies, and her name is Elaine Aron, A-R-O-N. There's a Carl Jung Institute in San Francisco, and she's a graduate from there, and she's leading, she just has a book came out, I believe in '96 for the first time. It's called The Very Sensitive Person. So she basically is leading this field, and I believe that this, as a coach, as a teacher, as a rehabilitation specialist, this is something that I just want to bring to your attention to everybody, because people with disabilities are highly sensitive. So a child growing up, I know Sherlock also had, Sherlock myself, we are very shy growing up. And because we were very sensitive about how people perceived us. I mean, in high school, it's brutal. I remember my high school days and I shrugged because the kids used to make fun of me, and they knew I couldn't understand it unless I was looking at them. So what do we do? So some of us are lucky enough that we've had stable love relationships that encouraged us. So for me, I had that with my paternal grandfather. So I had this stable relationship with someone who was always encouraging me, and that really helped me develop the personality to change that shyness into becoming an extrovert person. So now I'm always the first one to get that handshake out of the way. I know otherwise I would not know. So I trained myself to become an extrovert. I trained myself to not care so much about how people perceive me, and it made me more confident. Just like when you start public speaking for the first time and you're in a crowd like this. I mean, I challenge you. You come over here, it's different. You start looking at yourself from an outside perspective, and it's in the beginning it's difficult, but then later on you develop that. So me personally, I was able to overcome this shyness, and once I did that happened to me in college. I think I was 17 years old, and I just said, I don't care what people perceive. I'm just going to go for it. And in the beginning, the job market for myself was difficult. Also, I had to take jobs that that were not the most easy jobs in the beginning. For me, it was sales, and I went into, at that time in the '90s, the internet had just come out, and hotels were trying to, the Time Warner Cable wanted to put Wi-Fi in all the hotels across America, and that's what I did. I was selling to the hotel chains And it started from there. I had a dream to retire by age 40, the American dream. And I'm just one of those few lucky people that I actually, I remember 40th birthday, I let my career go. And then since then, I wanted to do something because my vision had kind of narrowed down. So I continued to become a consultant. Instead of working in the corporate America as a marketing consultant, I continued doing that to earn my income. And I met Sherlock, and Sherlock introduced me to this whole world of sports for the blind. And it's fantastic. I met inspirational individuals. Athletes are truly inspirational. And I was able to, Sherlock introduced me to the commission and to the Association of Blind Athletes of New Jersey. They wanted me to set up a website for the athletes, for the blind athletes, which we did. And the way we could showcase the different athletes and with all different sports. So what you'll see today is one of the videos we created, talking about what it is to be a blind athlete. And the biggest thing, again, I bring it back to the psychology of it, is that how much of what great expectation one has. And people who, they say that God meets you at the level of your expectation. So the Charles Dickens' great book, The Great Expectation, that's the one thing that the difference between a successful person, one level of success and another level of success is what your expectation is. So without further ado, Eddie, if you could help us, let's go to video.
Hold on a second. Okay, we're gonna take that. Let me just tell the Periscope people we have to go. Hi to our Periscope friends. And we're going to put some links up there, of course, so if they wanted to tune in a little bit later on, maybe they can catch up with some of the other things. And the videos that we're going to be sharing will be up online somewhere for them to take a look at as well, okay? So say goodbye to Periscope. Bye. So long, Periscope.